Let me go to a slideshow first. As you can see, we're discussing guidelines to stop hackers. It's very important for you to just understand some of the concept and how to make sure that you're not being hacked by hackers, especially if you're on the internet and cyber is getting more and more common, cyber attack. So let me just show you these guidelines. Hey everyone, my name is Wahid Lutfi. I would like to just show you today how to just stop hackers from getting into your personal information and stealing your information. Since cybersecurity is very, very important on the internet and cyber attacks are becoming very common, I prepared this video in order to show you how to just follow 5 simple steps or 5 simple methods of our guidelines to just prevent hackers getting into your personal data. So tip number one, we have to use a strong password. The combination of user name and password is called authentication. Usually you authenticate to a web server or to another location on a computer that you provide a user ID and a password. Both user ID and password has to be strong and has to be um, kind of hidden from other users, from other persons to know that information. And then even if you're on the network, make sure that user ID and passwords are not in clear text going to people. And then that way, it is if it is on the web through port 80, which is HTTP, Hypertext Transfer Protocol, that is usually in clear text. So you want to make sure the web server is going through SSL, TLS, port 443, HTTPS. But having authentication and protecting your user ID and password is going to prevent you from to some level of protection. For example, if somebody knows your user ID does not have your password, they will never be able to authenticate. If they have your password but not knowing the user ID, they still will not be able to authenticate. But knowing user ID and password is much easier for people to guess your password once they have your user ID if you're having a weak password. So in this tip number one, I'm suggesting to make sure that you have a strong password. And a strong password is a combination of uppercase, lowercase letters, some kind of combination of numbers, and then special characters like pound sign, at sign, all those ones, shebang, and all those bang symbol. Anything that you're adding as a special character, dollar sign, or and then at least 1 or 2 numbers and at least 1 or 2 uppercase letters. So the combination of this one should not be English dictionary words or a name of your children or name of your pets or something like the street name or something. Those are very easy for people to guess. And so anything that matches a word or a dictionary word, they can do a brute force attack on it, and then they can figure out the password. Hackers, they have software that will do the work for them. They don't have to just kind of guess it by mentally or some kind of like try and error. They will run it in the computer software code, and it will just do a brute force attack, and then eventually a password that is a word of dictionary, they will figure it out. So these combination of words and letters and special characters that you put is very important to make sure that this is like a full sentence. You take a character out of it. For example, you say, and the quick brown fox jumps over the lazy dog. You just take that one, a first character of each one of them, that you just decide to say which one is going to be uppercase, which one is going to be lowercase. Then you add some numbers, then you add some special characters, and sometimes you put the special characters in between certain words. That way, it is very, very hard for somebody to come up with that kind of guessing words. You know how to do it, and it should not be hard for you to type it. It should not be hard to just remember it. Like something like, for example, nobody knows what's going to happen in the stock market tomorrow. If that sentence, you just take the first letter of it, uh, any words is like who won the World Cup 2022. You just take the first character of it, then just make a combination of uppercase, lowercase, and then you just add some special characters to it. And sometimes you can even use certain characters, words that are as childhood on a certain language that you spoke, and then nobody else knows that one. So it's much easier to just remember those ones yourself, and then add some special characters. So you do understand how those strong passwords are created by you, and make sure that you don't write it anywhere. Don't write it in a piece of paper or even on a generated software. Here, the suggestion is may consider using password manager to generate and securely store password, but I don't recommend that one. Normally, I want to memorize the password rather than doing it just like in a kind of some apps that I may be locking myself on the apps, and all of a sudden the day that I need it, I cannot get access to the apps itself, or somehow I lost the password to get to the apps. So those kind of combination are not recommended by me, but other senior people may have suggested that one. I normally don't do those stuff, and I don't recommend it either. I really want to make sure that if I keep track of 1,000 passwords in my lifetime or something, I make sure that even if I update it every 3 months, then I make sure that the pattern is so easy for me to guess, so I can just remember it, and it's very difficult for hackers to guess it. Another important aspect of software kind of like security, or cyber security, or operating system, database security, everything, you have to keep all the software that are running on your hardware. So the hardware has to be up to date. You don't want to run software on an old hardware that has some issues or flaws itself. The hardware has to have the latest firmware upgrade. Make sure the firmware is up to date. And then when on top of it, the operating system, when you do apply the latest kernel patches, all the operating systems are up to date with everything that is the latest, greatest, based on the vendor. If you're running Mac OS X, make sure that Apple is just telling you what operating system version is the latest and what patches need to be done. If you're doing Unix Solaris, you go with Oracle. If you're doing Red Hat, you go with Red Hat. Linux stuff, and then on Linux Ubuntu, any operating system, you have to check with the vendor and then make sure that latest patches are available for you. Similarly, the database, if you're doing MySQL or Oracle, you're just contacting the Oracle, and then make sure you the critical patch update. You call it CPU for the database, which stands for critical patch update. And those ones are applied on the operating system also. All the critical patches that are kernel based, or operating system or system files, libraries, modules, everything, Apache web server, applications, every application that you're running, make sure they're up to date with the patches, networking software, browsers, and all the clients applications are all up to date. OpenSSH, OpenSSL, all of them are up to date with all the latest vulnerabilities being fixed. And then the next thing is that you make sure that you use two-factor authentication. Earlier, I was telling you the user ID and password combination is called authentication because you authenticate to a system. When you authenticate the system, you're giving a login name and password. And then when you are allowed to log in on that system, then you're doing authorization. Authentication versus authorization. What is the difference? Authentication is the mechanism that you use a combination of user ID, password, a user ID password in a two-factor authentication to authenticate yourself, that you identify yourself to the system, who you are. But authorization is the access privilege. What you're authorized to do, meaning that once you log into the server, can you just create a database? Can you just create a user? Can you just run a program? Can you execute something? Can you write to the disk? Can you read from the disk? Those are authorization. You're authorized. Access control list is almost also called permission, security permission. So you have read-write access, that is authorization. But with two-factor authentication, basically, you're providing another mechanism aside from authenticating through user and password. A second factor authentication, that's why it's called two-factor authentication. A secondary piece of information, such as RSA, restricted secure access token, that is in the form of a token getting updated in a kind of either a software or a piece of hardware, that every 30 seconds it gets a list of tokens that gets renewed. You just type in that one. So if the user hacker get access to your authentication, which is user ID password, but they don't have this token, they will not be able to authenticate the system. And remember that make sure that whatever mechanism that you use for authorization for RSA token, you have access to that RSA token or authorization code that sometimes sent back to you through the phone or email. So, some sort of authorization code or PIN number or something that you can authenticate as a second factor authentication. This is more common in terms of banks and other systems, or sometimes you lost your login and password for Google or Gmail or maybe Yahoo, and then you're trying to just authenticate again, and it's asking you for some authorization code that sends you on a secondary email system. The RSA is usually something that you carry within yourself, or in your body, or something, maybe even like in a software token as an apps that it gets updated, so you can authenticate to maybe a supercomputing environment or just a regular server on your company that you work through VPN and all those access. It requires a secondary factor of authentication. So that is something that you should have. And then tip number four, be wary of phishing scam. The phishing scam is very, very common. A lot of the hackers, they send you an email, a fake email. They're trying to masquerade themselves as a legitimate source, as if they know you. They just normally say, "Oh, you just made this purchase on Amazon. Can you verify something?" And you are afraid that, oh my God, there's always some kind of urgency involved on that email, and there's always like verify something, and then or just click on it in order to know what's going on. Don't click on those things. Don't even just any email that is coming in the form of urgency, and you don't know the source of it. Don't click on it. If you just browse over through the link that they provide you and read on the bottom of the status bar, normally that is not Amazon.com or and the company that they're claiming that they are. Normally, that is an IP address showing it's going to a hacker web server, and then it's trying to steal information. If at the minute you click on it, right away that the data is kind of like even if you just did not even if you did not follow up on the other link, it is dangerous when you click on those kind of emails without knowing the source. don't click on it, because the minute you click on it, it's almost like somebody call you at home, and you just pick up the phone and say hello, and then without knowing the phone number, don't even pick it up, because the minute you say hello, they know what type of person is in this house, whether it's a lady or a man or woman, a young person, a child who answered the phone. Similarly, with the email, the minute you click on it, they know that this email was legit. The email that they sent it to you, that was your email. So they already know that much information. Sometimes by knowing a little bit of information, they will just go and get more information next time on another attack. So just don't fall in those ones. I would suggest not to answer. Right here, I wrote, don't answer any phone calls that you don't know, recognize the source. This is very important. Why would you answer a phone that is not from your family members or from your work or some person that you know it? If you just got a phone call that you don't know the person, don't answer it. The minute you don't answer it, hackers are not going to just leave you a voice message, because they are afraid that you will trace them, or I will trace them, and they will find their source where the phone call was made from. So if you don't pick it up, and they didn't leave a voice message, you know that this was kind of a scam or a spam phone call. So if you didn't pick it up, and they didn't leave a message, then you're safe, because that person didn't know. They knew that you are smart enough to not just answer their phone. But if you are kind of like not picking it up, and it was your family or a friend or someone that wanted to talk to you, most likely they are going to leave you a voice message. Then check on the voice message. You say, well, I did not recognize the number, but it was some cousin or some friend that had not called me, so I did not have him. Now it's a new number, and I'm going to save it. That way, you know the person, and then you are going to answer that phone. And the same thing with emails. Any email that you don't know the source, don't answer it, please. Number 5, use a firewall and antivirus software. It is very important to just secure your software by not just patching it, but also blocking certain ports. So ports are on the computer hardware and computer software on operating system. Ports are kind of entries, doors to your system. It's as if like if you consider the house as a uh, uh, machine, as a computer, and then inside you have different rooms, and each room you have a door to get in. The door is the port number. So each port, whether it's a secure FTP port or SFTP port or SSH port or any daemons that you're running on a server that is listening to port 80, port 443, or port 21 or 22, or any firewall has to be blocking those ports that are not safe to the outside world. And then the firewall is going to allow those ports to be open. For example, if you're listening to a web server, then firewall has to allow a port 80 and 443 on that web server. And then if you're listening to secure SSH, then the firewall has to allow port 22. But allowing what? You by default, you block everybody, and then only allow the IP address or subnet or network or local machine that is on your network, and they're authorized to get in. So if somebody coming from a different IP address from outside of your network, then and they are prevented. There's a lot of mechanism. And then as a conclusion, I would like to thank you for watching this one. These 5 simple steps is not going to be just only solution. You always have to do all these 5 steps at all time. So because the software and hardware changes all the time, they need to be updated and apply the patches and all these security, and then password protection has to be always kind of like in sync with each other, that you are taking care of it at all time. And then it's going to just, for example, in terms of the software vulnerabilities. Some of the vulnerabilities that are not known today, tomorrow they will be recognized. For example, there's a flaw on a secure shell authentication or OpenSSL or Apache or some sort of chip that is introduced with Intel. Then you have to come up with the patches with Intel or whichever company, and they had it, and then you have the solution. But if anything that was not a problem today, a vulnerability may be recognized later on because some buffer overflow or cross-site scripting, anything that is possible in the software that somebody could come up and penetrate to your system. If they find out that flaw, then you need to patch it. For example, Microsoft every month on a given Tuesday, they just say, well, these are new patches that you have to apply to a Windows operating system. Similarly, if there's vulnerability on Linux or Mac or Unix, then you have to, as an admin or as a senior person that are taking care of those systems, you have to make sure all those patches are done. But this is not like the only solution. These 5 steps may prevent you 99% of the time, or maybe 90% of the time, but the other 10% is also training the users, training your groups outside of the environment. So somebody else could inadvertently does not make a mistake of doing something incorrectly, that they are not following these 5 steps. Or sometimes a vulnerability with a software and that is kind of antivirus software is there. It is not recognizing a new software. As we are just recognizing this software, new vulnerability could be introduced tomorrow and next day. So there's no system that is always up to date. You have to follow these steps at all times. I hope you enjoyed this video and I hope you learned something from it. Thanks for watching. And then please don't forget to go to our channel, which is MyWebUniversity. This is actually MyWebUniversity free education videos, the videos that I'm posting here. So you will see this one tonight. And then also I have a website, which is also secure. As you can see, HTTPS here. This is meaning that it is a SSL certificate. Everything is going in encryption. Even though the data that I'm having here is nothing like that involves money. There's no hacker is going to just hack a system that is just training or learning something. I would love them to just come in and start learning here. Just it's not gonna just help anybody to just hack a system that is just providing training. But on top of it, when you go to these videos, so if you click on the video, you will go to this video, which is also HTTPS on YouTube channel. So the channel that I have is also on HTTPS there. In addition, the documentation that I'm providing is also HTTPS Google Docs website. So all of this informations are all coming in secure page. This is saying that it's HTTPS secure page. And if you click here, basically, then you can see that the connection is secure. And then you can even learn to read certificate itself and the timestamp, how long is the certificate. You can see all of that information here. Every year you have to get a new SSL certificate. So this one is going to expire on May 15th, but it will just do it. I just updated my system, and then that one is until 2024. So you can see that the secure page is good for my side also. And you can see here May 15 of 2024. So this is also, let me just see. Looks like it is reading the same data, May 24. Oh, this is still showing Google. Let me just say, and this. So when you're looking at that verification, if you're looking at this certificate here, that's the YouTube channel. I want to see on this one, which is MyWebUniversity.com here. And then this one for the certificate of this one, connection is secure. You look at the certificate, and I believe it is expiring on 2024. Yeah, you can see here because I just applied it recently, and it expires on February 19, 2024. So this is saying that the GeoTrust is the certificate authority that I issued it. And on another video, maybe I show you how to do this kind of configuration on Apache web server for Ubuntu. So you can make that your system secure if you're running something like that. Okay. And that's about it. I hope you enjoyed it and I hope you learned it. Please don't forget to subscribe and like our videos. If you want me to make videos like this, make some comments. Take care. Bye-bye.